Well, the boardroom has had a few changes over the years, and it settled down probably in the 1950s to what it is, because air conditioners were becoming more and more then, and also privacy, and the walls were extended up to the ceiling then with glass panels put in, and that allowed the air conditioning to be put in there. So it was a big feature in its day to actually put that in.
And the main feature in the boardroom is the large boardroom table at which the meetings occur when the Sandhurst Trustees board meets once every 2 months or thereabouts.
Having the table in the middle, and we can certainly look at its workings underneath, take some of the leaves out of it, because it's quite unique that all the central leaves will come out of what's capable of sitting 20 people around a table to one which you would say is just about a 4 foot across table, which is something that we can do occasionally. When we used to have shareholders meetings, we shrunk it right down to enable the shareholders to be in the room.
But a number of the other things in the building also reflect the history of the company. So there's a particular safe in there that used to be a safe that was in the General Manager's office.
For all intents and purposes, everyone goes up to it and they've got to have a knock on it, because it's, well, it looks like wood, but it's actually steel underneath, and it's been stained that way so as it's actually right.
And because this building is the former post office, the different safes in the building still have the royal crest, because the building was constructed in the reign of Queen Victoria, so the royal crest for her features on a lot of the things within the building, particularly the safes side of things. But there's various books in the boardroom as well. For example, the legislation since Victoria became a separate colony in 1851. There are things like that sort of thing showing the history of Victoria, but also the history of Bendigo featured in the boardroom.
We've actually got all our minute books that go back to the 1888 time when we started off, all written in dip in pen and all those sorts of things. So not too many mistakes in it, and no whiteout to fix it in those days. In particular, we've got a Pioneers of Bendigo, which is a large collection of photographs put together on our main wall in the boardroom, and that's a focal point for people to come and get ancestors' photos and everything like that. The actual original photos are all stuck on there by hand, and then the listing of all those in alphabetical order down the bottom. The central point of that, of course, is George Lansell, and it spreads out from there, and it is a reflection of the people that were around over a particular number of years, and it's quite unique. We've actually had it photographed onto a negative in case something happens to it, and it's locked in our strong room, so we see it as a unique thing for Bendigo. There is a staircase in the boardroom, and there's a lead light window above that staircase. Well, at 9 or so o'clock in the morning, there's not much light coming over that side, but when the sun comes around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the colours that then throws into the boardroom are quite spectacular. It's an interesting situation that does change its mood, and the building does change its mood as the sun goes over. And being that back in the early days are only on gas lanterns, that there are a number of skylights in the place that allow the sun to come in, and that's where you get the feeling of what's happening outside. So if you've got the sun being covered by clouds and then it opens up, you get these all of a sudden bursts of bright light coming into the place. So there's 3 major skylights inside the building which do that. So it's totally different, and perhaps not a thing that you see in different places today that you built new, because they're trying to do some new buildings with everybody can see outside, and the Bendigo Bank's headquarters is one of those, but certainly back in 1908 when this place was extended, they were mindful of bringing light in then as well, or natural light. Well, originally, back when it was a post office, there would have been lanterns and there would have been candles and all sorts of things, because the power wasn't available, and lights would have been out in the street with gas run in, that they actually fed gas into here. And they did run gas lights in the building until 1908 when the electricity was connected along with the telephone. But certainly since then it's been run by power. But we had different lights and different shades and all that. When I first came in here in 1984, there was actually fluorescent lights in the boardroom and out in reception and all that, totally not in keeping with the building at all. And Kevin Jewell, who was a property manager at the time, and I convinced the board that we needed something different. So I remember it was one Bendigo Cup day that McInerney and Donaldson came in here and they replaced all the lights in the boardroom and the foyer and the entrance foyer. So we've got something now that reflects back to the lantern style, and something that we're quite proud of. total different, again, mood and feel to it, and still provides adequate light for people to see what they're doing. Anywhere inside where we actually see a small indent of a circle inside the woodwork against what we see in this room, which is straight panelling, is the old original 1908 style wood. It is, the older style is unique, and you'll see that at reception. Well, the front counter that we've got that you immediately see when you come in was put in the late 1890s. It would have been part of that renovation, and that came from Sweeney's Timber Yard in Garsted Street. As far as we can work out, it'd be English wood used because it's a honey sort of colour.
And a lot of people who come in remark on the counter, because it certainly is a very prominent feature. As you come in through the main doors, there it is. We did for a long time have banking happening while Sandhurst Trustees has been in the building, and so in the 1980s a reproduction counter was made.
In 1986 we decided that we would put in another front counter for our tellers to work behind, so there was a wall knocked down and a lot of renovations done at that particular time, and the second front counter was then put in, but the face of the two front counters are identically the same. And we did use at that particular time Gil Martins, who have got the old machinery to make the barley twists and things like that. But you will find when you have a look at the building that the difference in the wood is the one against English wood against Australian wood, so one's a bit darker than the other. But certainly nearly 100 years between the two, they both reflect the same when you look at them at the front. Another unique part would be if you go down into our strong room, there's actually a grill in there, which we've got things locked behind, which we still use today, and that's riveted together. It would have been all made in the forge and all that. There's no welding in it at all. It's all the old riveted style, and we still use it on a daily basis today, and it's still as strong as what it was. We've had various engineers look at it over the time, and they still say that it's as safe today as what it was built then. So it was built for the purpose of being a fireproof room. It does provide a very good secure room for us for all our records. In addition to that, we've got another 3 strong rooms throughout the place, and not as big as the main one, but certainly they're still used today and are still operative with locks and keys and all that sort of thing.
So it's very much at the back of the building, and it would have been put that way because I gather the walls are that much thicker at the back of the building, and also I would imagine that the walls are thicker either end of the strong room. It's a bit hard to describe how big it is, because these days, of course, it's filled with cupboards that we have different things stored in, and also different safes that we have things stored in on behalf of clients. On the vault of the ceiling, different staff members over different times have written their names and years of service, so there's a little part of the history of the company showing different staff members in their names.
If you go up the ladder in the safe at the back, and you go up the ladder, you'll see that it was a tradition back then that when staff, they would clock in when they first started with the organisation, write their name there, and when they left the organisation they'd go back up and actually clock out.
There's quite a few names written up there with different levels of years of service, and I think the oldest one that's up there when they must have started doing this little practice or tradition is in the 1940s. One of the quirks of the building is because different parts of it have been built at different times, there's quite a few different floor levels with funny steps in between those different ones. So one of the challenges when you're a new staff member is to try and have the first week without falling over up and down those different steps, and it is quite a test for the people who come in. And it's a bit hard to explain why there's so many different steps at odd spots across the building. One sort of quirky feature of the building is the unusual red and black carpet.
Well, the design and pattern, they tell me, I've never been there, but it's supposed to be the same as the House and Commons in England, so that's where the directors got the idea of having it. It's a unique carpet, again with a lot of things in our building. It's actually got more loops per square inch than traditional carpet. It was handmade over in the factory in Tasmania in the old 28-inch runs, which has then had to be sewn together. and we imported that, brought it over, picked it up, took it to Kyabram where they got a big sewing machine and sewed it up in lengths, and then brought it over and installed it. And it's quite a process to go through, but some of it's been down since our renovations in the late 1960s. Certainly it does shift, and again, it's back to what I was saying earlier on, that the shadows of the place do make it look. So if you were to come in and set up this afternoon when the sun's around further, you would see a different pattern again in that. So, you know, your eyes aren't playing tricks on you, it's just the carpet.
When I started, the new people to the organisation would be the ones that would do the backups of our computer system. So you would be the last here at night, and you'd be walking around a building that is very old and very creaky and very dark. And, you know, I think most staff that have worked for Sandhurst over the time believe that they have heard someone walking through the corridors.
Different people talk about a particular cold feeling or similar that they interpret as being some other presence in the building. And I guess the building is, through having had so many people in and out of the building, transacting as a post office, transacting with Sandhurst Trustees since 1891, that there's bound to be different stories.
And I've experienced it too as well, that sometimes you have to come in because of work or whatever at midnight or 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you really get the feeling that you're not the only person here. And it's certainly an amazing thing to go through, and you know, yell out, "Is anyone else there?" or whatever, because you do get that feeling that someone else is around.
There were many people in and out, and many stories that would have happened over the years, I guess. But there's no official story about a particular person who's supposed to have died in the building, because I don't think it's really ever had a sort of residential sort of function.
I think there's been a lot of people that have worked for Sandhurst over the 124 years, coming up 125-year history of the organisation. And, you know, I think there's people that still like to stick around.
So there are plenty of quirks around the building. We've tried in recent times to put aside some of the more historic sort of things, whether it's an older set of scales that might have been used years ago, no longer used, but kept as part of the history of the office procedures within the company. And there are those sorts of things that we've kept and put on display so that visitors to us, clients in particular, can have a sense of the history of the company. We have a lot of staff members who come in, so there aren't that many staff members who are familiar with the building, and I think they enjoy seeing a side of the history of the broader company through the history of our building and some of the things that we've got on display.
We're very lucky as an organisation to be able to, you know, step into the building at View Street and feel like you've walked back in time, you know, all that history that you feel when you walk into the building, and then to be able to walk across the road to what is a state-of-the-art, very new and quite controversial building it was for Bendigo at the time, in the Bendigo and Adelaide Bank building. They are just poles apart in their feel, but yet I think it just shows you that the old and the new can merge, and it actually can live and reside together.
I suppose it's a way to run a modern company inside of an old building, and you just got to appreciate the fact that the directors over those years have said, we want to retain. And the directors coming on haven't said, throw all that out, it's old stuff or anything like that. They've been quite proud to enhance it and keep it going. And it's a unique building, and it's one that Bendigo itself is quite proud of, that it's been retained. There's a couple of others around that are examples of buildings that have been kept going, but one with constant use since 1888 is totally different, and only having had 2 owners in that many years, of over 120 years, is something that you know, Bendigo should be proud of, that it's got a lot of stability inside its company and its building, which was started by Bendigonians.